Koname, a second-year high school student, was relaxing and browsing on his phone looking to buy a motorcycle when his close friend Shinizuka suddenly rushed over, showing him a photo of a strange phenomenon spreading throughout Shibuya. The image showed numerous square-shaped holes resembling human silhouettes, which were reportedly appearing with increasing frequency in crowded streets. The atmosphere in the classroom grew tense when their classmate Kyoto burst in, anxiously asking about Hamada's attendance that day. Upon learning that Hamada was absent, he showed clear concern, while Koname suddenly remembered receiving a message from Hamada the night before. When he opened the message, he discovered it contained a link to an application called Darwin's Game. While still confused, Hamada appeared to warn him, trying to prevent Koname from interacting with the game, but Koname accidentally touched the screen. Immediately, a strange snake-like creature emerged from the phone, bit Koname's neck, causing him to stand up in panic before collapsing instantly on the classroom floor. When he regained consciousness, Koname was invited by Kyoto to meet that evening to learn more about Darwin's Game. Still shocked by what had happened, he decided to take the day off from school and returned home in a state of confused thoughts. While traveling by train, the Darwin's Game application suddenly displayed a duel invitation. Before he could understand what was happening, the system automatically matched him with a player using the nickname Panda. Surprisingly, the person sitting across from him on the train was this very opponent. The man immediately drew a knife and attacked, forcing Koname to flee, leaving the train and running onto the crowded street to escape, although he found a police station to seek help. The officer there was killed by Panda right before his eyes. In this desperate situation, Kyoto appeared carrying a crossbow to rescue his friend. Despite being hit by an arrow, Panda managed to use his invisibility ability to approach and seriously wound Kyoto. While the opponent staggered from his injuries, Koname quickly helped Kyoto escape to a nearby parking lot. Along the way, Kyoto revealed that what was happening was part of the brutal survival rules of Darwin's Game, where participants are forced to fight to the death to survive. The two tried to hold out at the parking lot. Koname wanted to call for help, but Kyoto explained that the game doesn't allow players to contact the outside world. Later, Panda tracked them to their hiding place. With no other options, Koname left Kyoto in a safe spot and diverted the assassin by leading him on a chase. According to his friend, if he could survive until the match timer expired, he would win. Panda once again turned invisible and rushed forward with his knife, but during the pursuit, he unfortunately tripped over a car and fell. At that moment, the match time ended. The opponent's body began to display strange cubic formations, then gradually disintegrated, with body parts disappearing into nothingness. Within seconds, where he had lain appeared a deep square hole identical to those Shinizuka had shared in the photo the day before. Panda had actually been the one who killed Hamada earlier. When Hamada was attacked, he had managed to send a distress message to Koname, but Koname only opened it the next morning, making everything too late. Returning to Kyoto, Koname discovered that his friend hadn't survived either, leaving only a final message hoping Koname would continue living to overcome the game. At that moment, Koname received a new message from a player with the nickname Shuka, offering to meet at a warehouse in the port area if he wanted help. When he arrived, he met a blonde girl named Shuka. She admitted to secretly following Koname since he first joined Darwin's Game. Shuka demanded that Koname demonstrate his special ability granted by the game, called a sigil, but Koname knew nothing about it. Shuka explained that a sigil is a unique special ability that each player possesses after being bitten by the snake in the application. Typically, players can activate this skill without any guidance. Although the application includes a section detailing each individual's sigil information, Koname's account showed an error and couldn't be identified. Shuka decided to test Koname's power by challenging him to a Darwin's Game match. Her sigil allowed her to control iron chains. As soon as the duel began, she charged forward, forcing Koname to flee throughout the warehouse. Although he had bought a gun for self-defense before arriving, he had left it at home fearing legal trouble. While running, he suddenly discovered a gun appearing in his hand, possibly activated by his sigil. He immediately used it to counterattack, forcing Shuka to dodge. Using this advantage, Koname created a trap by destroying the electrical system, then emerged from the darkness to subdue his opponent. He declared that he didn't want to kill anyone unless absolutely necessary and still hoped they both could survive. Faced with Koname's determination, Shuka agreed to surrender, and from that moment considered him the leader of their group. Immediately after everything settled, Koname collapsed from exhaustion on the blonde girl's shoulder. As morning light filtered through the window cracks, Koname slowly awoke to find himself in Shuka's apartment, the blonde girl who had been with him through the life and death battle in Darwin's Game the night before. After what had happened, Shuka proactively proposed forming an alliance with Koname to better coordinate in upcoming battles. Despite some lingering suspicion, Koname nodded in agreement to this well-intentioned offer. However, since his level hadn't yet reached B2, he couldn't officially lead a group. Therefore, their relationship temporarily remained at the friendship level within the system. Shuka spent the morning thoroughly explaining the features of the game. She revealed that whenever players win matches, they are awarded a certain amount of points. These points can be converted into currency or used to purchase support items. One of the most useful items is called Shelter, which allows players to temporarily hide from the matching system for 1 week. During this time, no one can challenge them through the automatic feature, although direct encounters outside the game are still unavoidable if they meet opponents in real life. Immediately after, Koname tested the conversion feature by using 10 points to exchange for cash, with a result that left him stunned that small amount of points converted to 1 million yen. The next morning, Shuka arranged to meet him at another location. Before leaving, she reminded Koname to absolutely keep Darwin's game secret, as any disclosure of information to outsiders would be severely punished by the system. For this reason, veteran players often use the nickname D-Game instead of the full name of the game. This meeting took place in Shibuya, where a rare event, the treasure hunt, was being held today, attracting numerous players of various levels. They quickly arrived and waited for the start time. While waiting for Shuka, who had gone to the restroom, Koname took the opportunity to browse his phone and check information. Suddenly, a stranger rushed up and snatched the device from his hand, then signaled for Koname to follow him. With no other choice, he silently followed the stranger through the crowded street, remaining vigilant. When they turned into a small alley with few passers-by, the blonde man began making sarcastic remarks, implying that Koname had been careless in losing his phone, the most important item for anyone participating in D-Game. According to this person, dropping or having your device stolen was equivalent to putting an end to your fate in this brutal game. After forcing Koname to follow him into a narrow, secluded alley, the mysterious blonde man finally revealed his true purpose. He wasn't an ordinary thief, but an experienced player in Darwin's game, even belonging to a high-ranking group. His motive for approaching Koname wasn't for the phone, but out of curiosity. He wanted to verify the capabilities of a newcomer who had just entered this fierce arena. Someone who had survived an encounter with Shuka, a legendary warrior with the nickname the Undefeated Queen, who had never lost in any match since entering the game. After clarifying his objective, the man returned the phone to Koname and challenged him to a one-on-one duel to determine their relative skills. For Koname, this was a meaningless action, as he didn't want to waste energy on purposeless battles. However, his refusal didn't stop the other person. As soon as Koname showed non-cooperation, the other man immediately threw a direct punch that knocked him to the ground before he could react. Forced into a corner with no other options, Koname had to fight back. He quickly summoned an electrical weapon, a taser formed from his own sigil ability, and actively charged toward the challenger. Although the other person skillfully avoided the direct attack, he carelessly allowed Koname to steal the phone from his person. Having secured his opponent's most important possession, Koname used it as a bargaining chip, threatening to destroy the device if the person before him didn't end this pointless confrontation. The situation unexpectedly reversed, putting the blonde player on the defensive for the first time. Just as tensions reached their peak, Shuka suddenly appeared with a vigilant look in her eyes, forcing the opponent to back down. With no other way out of the awkward situation, the provocateur had no choice but to surrender. After returning the phone to its rightful owner, Koname finally learned the identity of his opponent. His name was Inukai, a member of the famous fighting organization Danju Boxing Club. It turned out that Inukai was just a high school student, 1 year below Koname, but with fighting abilities far exceeding normal people. In the moment before the three could recover from this unexpected clash, Darwin's game system suddenly initiated a major event. A notification appeared, causing all three bodies to glow. Luminous cubes appeared around them, and in the blink of an eye, each person was teleported to a completely unfamiliar location. When he regained consciousness, Koname found himself transported to a mysterious room where the treasure hunt had officially begun. While Koname was teleported to a strange room, Shuka appeared in the middle of a main street. Everything around seemed normal at first glance, but the atmosphere quickly became unusual. The local residents who had no connection to Darwin's game suddenly lost consciousness, their eyes empty as if under external control. Without any prompting, they all simultaneously turned and walked home, acting as if hypnotized by an invisible force. At that moment, Shuka's phone vibrated. The familiar snake icon appeared on the screen, emitting a cold, mechanical voice, beginning to announce the rules of a completely new event, a special variant called Royal Battle. Unlike ordinary confrontations, this time the game presented a more harsh mission. All 31 players participating in the event were informed that the main task was to collect special necklaces scattered throughout the city. There were a total of 300 necklaces, divided into 7 types corresponding to 7 different point levels. The rarer they were, the higher the reward. The necklaces weren't simply prizes, but determined survival as well. Anyone who failed to collect at least 3 within 24 hours would be immediately eliminated by the system. Players could use their phone cameras or system maps to locate necklaces in the permitted area, but couldn't track the positions of other opponents. Additionally, all movement was restricted to within the game map's boundaries. Those who exceeded the limit would be dealt with without warning. As soon as he used the camera to scan the environment of the room he had been teleported to, Kanem quickly discovered an object hidden under the bed, a rare ruby necklace, worth up to 500 points, equivalent to 50 million yen when converted. Although the event had just begun, he already had a lucky start. However, this advantage was quickly dampened when Kanem realized he wasn't the only one in the building. Each floor showed signs of activity, moving shadows, the sound of careful footsteps, and doors quietly opening and closing. Sensing the lurking danger, Kanem immediately sought to leave this dangerous place. He decided not to use the elevator for fear of someone hiding in ambush. To prepare for unexpected situations, he summoned a pistol from his sigil ability, then moved quickly via the emergency stairs. When he reached the middle of the floors, he encountered another player face hidden behind a black mask, holding a rifle in a ready-to-fire position. Without time to react, Kanem was forced to turn and run back. However, all escape routes were blocked. All emergency exits had been blocked by strange plants growing densely, barring each step as if someone had deliberately created them. Pursued to a dead end with no other way out, Kanem threw away the valuable necklace he had just found as a trade-off, hoping to save his life. Seeing this action, the opponent showed contempt and didn't bother to fire his gun. Perhaps in the other's eyes, Kanem was a coward not worth wasting ammunition or energy on. He turned and left, leaving Kanem standing there, panting in the dark hallway of the deadly game that had just entered its most brutal phase. While continuing to find his way through the narrow maze of the building, Kanem unexpectedly encountered a small girl standing silently in the deserted hallway. Although only in middle school, Rain, this young girl, was a veteran player with superior tactical analysis and information gathering abilities in Darwin's game. Among players, she was regarded as a living database, always knowing details about the abilities, behaviors, and battle history of most opponents participating. Surprisingly, even Kanem, despite having joined the game recently, was already in the data file that Rain managed. The situation now became extremely tense. The main emergency exit was blocked by mutant plants growing thickly across it, forcing Kanem to consider using the elevator as a last resort. As he approached the elevator, a horrifying scene suddenly appeared. The corpse of the rifle-wielding player who had hunted him earlier was lying motionless inside the elevator, tightly wrapped by vines like a soulless body. Strangely, the dead body hadn't disappeared as usual after a player's death. This made Kanem sense that something extremely wrong was happening behind the scenes of this event. With no viable alternative, Kanem proactively proposed an alliance with Rain to work together to find an escape route. As they ventured deeper into the danger-filled hallway, Rain shared a new discovery she had just analyzed. The person causing the abnormal plant phenomenon in the building was none other than a dangerous gamer with the nickname the Flower Planter. According to her observations, this opponent possessed a high-level plant-controlling sigil, allowing him to create vines capable of constricting and controlling the behavior of targets. Hearing this, Kanem began to feel concerned. He hypothesized that players who appeared to have fallen weren't actually eliminated from the game, but kept in a vegetative state, becoming tools serving the mastermind scheme. Subsequent developments quickly verified the speculation. Seemingly mindless individuals suddenly attacked again, like puppets being manipulated in a game hunting down the remaining survivors. The entire architecture of the building seemed to have been transformed into a death maze, where no hallway was safe. A more dangerous possibility emerged in Kanem's mind. Perhaps the building's entire surveillance system had fallen into the opponent's hands. If true, every move he and Rain made was under control. Realizing the situation couldn't continue, Kanem made a bold decision to destroy all cameras appearing on their path. Although this action increased the risk of direct pursuit, he still chose to take the risk to cut off the enemy's source of information. In the survival battle called Darwin's game, life sometimes doesn't belong to the strongest, but to those clear-headed enough to take away the opponent's advantage even in darkness. After skillfully evading the pursuit of players being manipulated by plant-controlling powers, Kanem and Shuka quickly found a hidden room on the middle floor of the high-rise, a place where they temporarily escaped the opponent's observation. In that tense, quiet space, Shuka didn't take long to deduce that the person manipulating all the vines was the florist, a player with extremely dangerous plant-controlling abilities, likely silently monitoring their every move through the surveillance system installed in the building's monitoring room. Realizing they couldn't remain passive any longer, she immediately devised a bold strategy to force the opponent to reveal himself directly. By utilizing grenades she had previously purchased through Darwin's game application's gacha feature, Shuka blew up the plant masses tightly wound around the stairwell area where access was heavily blocked. This created a safe corridor leading to the lower floors. The brave young woman took on the role of bait, rushing toward the cafeteria to draw the attention of all the controlled players, while Koname seized the golden opportunity to quickly slip through a narrow window, heading straight for the lobby, the area offering the shortest path to the building's control center. Shuka, despite being closely pursued by armed enemies, maintained admirable composure. Thanks to the special skill granted by the Darwin's game system, a form of spatial calculation ability that could predict speed and angles of movement with near-perfect accuracy, she could anticipate the trajectory of each bullet and adjust her dodging posture with incredible flexibility. This agility helped her quickly lose her pursuers without sustaining any injuries. Meanwhile, at the lobby, Koname cautiously approached the control room suspected to be the command center for the vines. The well-coordinated plan between the two forced the florist to leave his safe position directly confronting the player known as Sunset Ravens. Upon appearing, he fully utilized his skill, causing massive plants in the area to immediately converge, wrapping around his body to form a living armor, a dense shell seemingly immune to ordinary attacks. Despite being mentally prepared, Koname was still surprised by the sturdiness of the plant armor. Bullets from the rifle he created using his materialization ability completely failed to penetrate that defensive layer. Recognizing the dire situation, Koname was forced to throw a stun bomb to interrupt the attack, then quickly retreat to a nearby room to regroup. However, the florist didn't miss the opportunity to counterattack. He charged like a whirlwind and delivered a devastating punch, knocking Koname to the floor, temporarily unconscious. In that life-or-death moment, on the thin boundary between defeat and survival, Koname suddenly remembered that his ability wasn't limited to just creating weapons, he could also intervene in their detailed structure. He immediately changed the formula, increasing the explosive content in each bullet to create stronger penetrating pressure. The next shot was clear evidence of the evolution in Koname's combat thinking. The upgraded bullets pierced through the florist's seemingly impenetrable armor, forcing the opponent to buckle under the continuous firepower. Although he had the opportunity to finish him off on the spot, Koname chose to spare the other player, a humane decision rarely seen in this inherently brutal world. Not long after, Rain appeared, the genius data analysis girl who had been monitoring the entire process remotely. All three people, including Koname, Rain, and Shuka opponents in their first meeting, finally chose to sit down together and decided to form a survival alliance. In a deadly game like Darwin's game, where the only rule is that there are no rules, collective strength is the strongest shield against death. Rain didn't hide the potential danger hanging over their heads. Among the more than 300 players participating in this royal match, there existed an extremely bloodthirsty individual, Wang, the leader of the notorious organization Ace. He didn't fight for points or rewards, but simply took killing as a sick pleasure. According to Rain's conjecture, it was highly likely that this person was targeting the high-rise where a huge concentration of valuable necklaces was located as a perfect hunting ground for his insatiable bloodlust. Without a doubt, the peaceful time had ended, and the real nightmare was just beginning. While the smoke from the battle with the florist hadn't completely cleared, another player with a mysterious appearance, face hidden behind a protective mask, had survived the chaos thanks to fortunately not being affected by the plant controlling skill. Noticing that this person possessed fighting ability and surprising calmness, Koname, who was gradually becoming the spiritual leader of the group, proactively suggested he join their forces to strengthen their collective power in preparation for the brutal battles ahead. However, this strange player wasn't easily trusting of anyone. Haunted by having been controlled like a living puppet, he appeared cautious, especially when facing Hiragi, the one with plant-controlling abilities who had caused him to completely lose control of himself. For this reason, he frankly refused the invitation, unwilling to re-collaborate with someone who had turned him into an unwilling fighting tool. Despite being rejected, Koname maintained a calm attitude, not forcing the masked person to join. However, when he heard about Wang, the infamous leader of the Ace organization, the other's eyes suddenly changed color. Smoldering anger seemed to flare up, revealing an unresolved past. After a few seconds of silence, the mysterious player removed his mask, revealing his true identity in the game, Ryuji. This action marked a turning point, the moment he officially entered into an alliance with Koname. At the same time, Hiragi, who had once been controlled by a stronger force, also chose to stand with the group, becoming a reliable ally. Thanks to his plant-controlling sigil, he was immediately assigned the task of blocking all approaches to the building. Vines and roots spread like a spider web, transforming the area into a fortified base, preparing for the major confrontation ahead. The four-person alliance Kaname, Ryuji, Hiragi, Shuka began to form a defensive axis directly confronting the Ace organization. However, before the situation could stabilize, another development occurred. Kaname suddenly received a distress signal from Shuka. This astonished him, since she was a class warrior, famously undefeatable. Being driven into such a vulnerable position signaled a terrifying threat lurking nearby. In the eastern underground area, Shuka had fallen into a trap set by a young player. He possessed a sigil that controlled water and ice with high precision to the point of near perfection. Taking advantage of the narrow terrain in the tunnel, the opponent created thick ice walls behind Shuka, completely blocking her escape route. Her metal arrows couldn't penetrate the cold barrier, forcing her into a dead end. The situation became even more serious when water began flooding into the sealed space. Oxygen was depleting, every movement became difficult, and survival time was running short. Facing this danger, Kaname once again had to step up, taking on the responsibility of rescuing his teammate amid the hazards surrounding them in Darwin's game, where just one mistake could lead to a permanent end. After receiving the distress signal from Shuka, his close companion who had fought beside him in many life and death battles, Kaname didn't hesitate to make an immediate decision. Recognizing the urgent situation, he chose to set out to rescue the girl, taking Ryuji along as support. Meanwhile, Rain and Hiragi would temporarily remain at the high rise, continuing the mission of protecting the main stronghold, preparing for the possibility of Wang's Ace organization launching a sudden attack at any moment. While on the way to the area where Shuka had sent her signal, Kaname took the opportunity to explain to Ryuji about the characteristics of the personal sigil he possessed. Kaname's ability, the Fire God's Hammer, allowed him to copy objects he had directly touched, though the limitation lay in the complexity of the structure. Simple items like handheld weapons or small devices could be perfectly copied, but for objects with sophisticated mechanical structures or multi-layered electronic systems, recreation was almost impossible. As Kaname's group approached the target coordinates, Rain and Hiragi separated to take on the task of observing the area around the building. While checking the bracelet's characteristic devices of Darwin's game players, they discovered that each had a QR code containing a numerical sequence, no two identical. Noticing this anomaly, both theorized that the bracelets might be hiding a deeper layer of meaning, directly related to the true nature of the game, far beyond the usual role of identification or time limitation. At the same time, Kaname and Ryuji followed the signal from Shuka's bracelet, arriving at a pedestrian tunnel on the southern edge of the city. Before the entrance, they saw a seemingly shy girl standing silently. Though suspicious, Kaname chose to ignore her and continued tracking the signal. Finally, the signal led him to a section of the tunnel submerged in water. Without hesitation, he dove in, determined to find Shuka at all costs, while Ryuji stayed behind on guard duty. As soon as Kaname left, Ryuji began to feel something was off about that strange girl. Her eyes were too alert, showing no signs of panic or fear. Sensing killing intent silently spreading, Ryuji immediately drew his gun, interrogating her about her true purpose. Without evasion, the girl quickly revealed her true identity. She was Sauda, possessor of water and ice controlling abilities, who had severely injured Shuka in the tunnel. Immediately afterward, he suddenly ran toward a ruined shop nearby, beginning another tense chase. While Ryuji continued pursuing his opponent, he quickly found himself in a difficult position to control. The person he encountered was a teenager with ice manipulation powers, a rare sigil with the ability to control the physical environment in ways disadvantageous to enemies. With extremely fast reaction speed and sharp terrain using skills, the boy not only created ice walls to block Ryuji's movements, but also cleverly trapped him with solidified patches under his feet, making every movement sluggish. Just as a sharp ice blade was about to plunge into a vital weak point on Ryuji's body, something unexpected happened. Another personality within the ice-controlling boy suddenly awakened. This internal entity seized control in an instant, restraining the extreme behavior before the blade touched the opponent's flesh. At the same time, in the water tunnel deep beneath the city, Kaname was performing an extremely dangerous mission. Determined to find Shuka's whereabouts, he accepted the risk of diving into the freezing water-filled corridor, which had once been completely frozen by the influence of surrounding sigils. A thick ice wall blocking the entrance forced Kaname to use a handheld weapon to break open a small gap large enough for his body to slip through. Each swing consumed considerable strength, while oxygen was increasingly depleted. Swimming through the cracked ice, he continued diving deeper, entering a pitch-black water zone without light. After an urgent search with limited visibility, Koname discovered Shuka, his close teammate, unconscious, floating in the bone-chilling water. Her face was pale, her breathing weak, signs indicating her condition had become extremely critical. Without allowing himself to hesitate even for a second, Koname pulled Shuka to the surface. As soon as they had enough airspace to breathe, he immediately began resuscitation using chest compressions combined with artificial respiration. Each breath blown in was a plea for survival sent to the fragile chance that remained. Finally, after a long series of tense seconds, Shuka's breathing gradually stabilized. Her eyes opened slightly, dim but still reflecting amazing alertness. Together they tried to swim against the current to return to the safe area above, though each stroke became laborious. When they reached the shore, in that rare moment of quiet, Shuka revealed a truth she had buried for a long time. Her motive for joining Darwin's game had never been related to material rewards or illusory fame. All her actions were directed toward a personal goal: finding the murderer who killed her parents right before her eyes when her childhood was not yet complete. In the process of tracing the remaining details, Shuka accidentally discovered a hidden Darwin's game installation in her father's personal device. That inexplicable coincidence made her believe that the perpetrator of the tragedy was among the contestants present in this brutal game. And so, she chose to face it with her own life. On land, Ryuji, after a tense struggle with the ice controller, had successfully subdued the girl accompanying him. When everyone gathered, conflicting emotions arose. Shuka initially expressed a desire to punish the young woman due to her connection to the attack, but then stopped when witnessing her innocent appearance, especially when someone recalled the moment she received mouth-to-mouth resuscitation from Koname to save her life. Shuka's face suddenly flushed red, a rare emotion from the Steel Warrior, usually so cold on the battlefield. That strange girl later introduced herself as Sui. Unlike ordinary players, she possessed a sigil controlling liquids at a flexible level. But what shocked the group most was that within that small body existed another entity, her deceased twin brother named Sauta. After a serious accident, Sauta's consciousness, through an unclear mechanism, merged with Sui's physical body. The two now coexisted in one body, taking turns controlling it depending on mental state. A separate phone was the only bridge maintaining the ego boundary between them. Each person's sigil had opposite properties. Sui could manipulate liquids, while Sauta possessed the ability to freeze any surrounding moisture into physical ice. Impressed by both the special ability and sincere attitude, Koname chose to invite Sui to join Sunset Ravens. Her presence helped stabilize the team during an increasingly brutal phase of the game, as underground forces began to emerge. Not long after, Rain sent a different message. The content didn't revolve around rewards or scores, but aimed at something deeper: access to the root system, or the secret operation of the entire Darwin's game. At that moment, 8th, under Wang's command, launched a major attack targeting the temporary shelter of the surviving player group. The hotel space immediately fell into chaos. Hira, the quiet but loyal warrior, recognized the critical situation. He immediately called for members strong enough to retreat toward Koname, while he chose to stay behind to block the enemy. Hira had never pursued victory. What he aimed for was a reward to help cure his little daughter, a girl about the same age as Suzyun, Sauta's sister. For him, every choice stemmed from a father's love. When confronting Xiang and Shuka, the two strongest warriors under Wang, Hira, despite having set careful traps, found himself at a disadvantage because the opponents possessed superior fire abilities. After defeating one of them, he was forced to make a final trade-off by activating the explosion mechanism he had prepared in advance in the basement. Hira's death wasn't simply a sacrifice, but a decision carrying an indomitable spirit, a father accepting his own immolation to preserve the path of survival for others. Kana, the youngest member of the group, but possessing extraordinary technological intelligence, unfortunately fell into 8th's hands in a rare moment of carelessness. Wang, with his cold cruelty and deep schemes, carried out a series of psychological and physical torture against her. His purpose was to extract confidential information related to Darwin's game, including the system's operating mechanism, undisclosed elements, and data that only a few who had reached the deepest level would clearly understand. While everyone thought there was no way to recover Kana before she completely collapsed, the main force of Sunset Ravens suddenly reappeared from the darkness. With a meticulously calculated plan down to the smallest detail, they used short-range stunning transmitters to create a temporary stunning effect, paving the way for a surprise attack. In that decisive moment, they quickly eliminated the gunman escorting Kana. She was rescued by a hair's breadth, when the boundary between life and death seemed only one fragile breath apart. Immediately afterward, Koname personally escorted Kana back to a safe shelter, where she could continue the crucial mission of completely decoding Darwin's game's operating system, the cause of so many tragedies. On the front line, Shuka and Rain decided to stay behind to stop the advancing 8th Unit. They proactively deployed guerrilla tactics based on the complex terrain of the abandoned urban area, using small corridors, narrow stairs, and darkness to create advantages. Their counterattacks, though not overwhelming, were extremely effective in diverting the enemy's concentration. Rain simultaneously maintained communication with Kana through the internal system, continuously sending decrypted data she had collected for parallel analysis during combat. Meanwhile, Ryuji, once a significant assassin in the underworld, chose to maintain tactical distance to create pressure on the flank. However, in an unexpected situation, he was directly ambushed, causing his left arm to be almost completely destroyed. Blood flowed continuously, but Ryuji's eyes maintained their determination. Realizing he couldn't continue fighting much longer, he quietly pulled out a grenade hidden in his protective clothing. His objective was clear: if he couldn't survive, he would at least eliminate a pillar of 8th, weakening the opponent's entire strategy from within. At the same time, Kana, after temporarily stabilizing her mental state, continued immersing herself in the complex encryption code she found in the Darwin bracelets collected throughout their journey. Initially, the numbers and symbols appeared disconnected, as if random, without following a fixed logic. However, the deeper she analyzed, the more Kana discovered strange connections between them, a secret pattern gradually emerging. Those symbols weren't merely digital equipment, but also encoded coordinates. Each bracelet carried a piece of the map leading to the ultimate prize, control of Darwin's game center, where the game's true creator had embedded from the early days. Thanks to her sharp strategic analytical mind, Rain immediately grasped the structural principle within the system. She coordinated with Kana to determine the exact location of the core safe containing the original database, something that could end Darwin's game entirely if it fell into the right hands. However, the journey there couldn't be completed without dealing with Wang. Just as Ryuji prepared to activate the fateful grenade, Kana unexpectedly returned to the battlefield. Carrying no weapons, showing no defensive posture, Kana stepped out with complete calm, her arm raised high holding a silver alloy object. It was a strange key, manufactured to high technical standards, capable of directly linking to the core database. Instead of choosing destruction, Kana proposed a solution that surprised everyone: negotiation. She was ready to exchange this key for a conditional withdrawal from 8th, not out of fear, but to prevent further unnecessary casualties. This brave action came from belief in self-determination, a decision stemming not from strength, but from profound humanity. The proposal caused both sides to cease fire momentarily. Surprise spread across the battlefield. By placing human lives at the center, rather than scores or power, Kana had unexpectedly reversed what seemed an unchangeable situation. From a deadlocked position, hope was rekindled, and for the first time, Darwin's game wasn't just a place of bloodshed, but also contained an opportunity to choose a different path. In the extremely tense moment of a fake negotiation, Kanem, with amazing calmness and improvisation ability, began to release a skillfully arranged series of information related to the symbols engraved on the Darwin bracelet. He deliberately created a seemingly reasonable story to convince Wang that the key both sides were fighting for actually led to the final prize. Kanem's goal wasn't simply deception, but seizing the opportunity to create an escape route and save his teammates from the risk of complete elimination. While the exchange continued, Wang wasn't completely convinced. The 8th leader maintained a vigilant attitude, because beside him was a special member Prior who possessed a sigil helping detect lies. Although clearly aware that what Kanem said was partly fictional, Prior didn't intervene immediately, as he wanted to see the final result before taking action. After consideration, Wang agreed to accept the condition of handing over the key, with an accompanying clause, only guaranteeing Kanem's life, while Ryuji, despite being seriously injured, would still be dealt with on the spot to ensure no one could cause surprises later. In that critical moment, Kanem continued to perfectly play the role of someone ready to betray teammates in exchange for his life. He boldly declared that he didn't care about Ryuji's fate, as long as he himself was safe. However, Ryuji, who possessed a sigil allowing observation of emotions and true nuances of others, easily recognized this wasn't the truth. He was deeply moved when understanding that Kanem was risking everything, including reputation or honor, just to extend time while creating a counterattack opportunity. Seizing the moment of surprise, Kanem threw the key into the air, causing Wang to instinctively rush forward to grab it. At the same time, he quickly entered a code into a storage locker placed at the station gate area, not a minor detail, but the center of the entire game. The symbols on the Darwin bracelets didn't point to the prize, but actually provided coordinates and opening codes for the locker, the storage containing the core of this treasure hunt event. As soon as the locker opened, a secret mechanism inside was immediately activated. A strong beam of light flashed, causing all remaining players on the map to be randomly teleported to different areas in the city, with only Kaname remaining at the scene. Before him now was a small iron box inside the locker compartment. When opened, Kaname discovered a ringing phone, the only object inside. He picked up the phone anxiously, and a voice from the other end announced that he was the final winner of the special event. When allowed to make a single request as a reward, Kaname didn't hesitate to express his wish to withdraw from Darwin's game, a desire that had existed in his heart for a long time. However, the answer from the administrator left him speechless. The system doesn't allow leaving the game once participation is accepted. Victory, though seemingly complete, didn't open up freedom as Kaname had hoped. The game continued, with harsh rules never changing, and now, he had stepped deeper into the inescapable vortex called Darwin's game. After revealing the true purpose of this survival game, the person behind the entire system confirmed that if players wanted to escape the deadly spiral, they only had two choices: either achieve absolute victory, meaning completing all challenges the system presented for the game to automatically end, or choose the more risky way, finding the hiding place of the mastermind, completely eliminating him, then destroying the entire core system of Darwin's game. After hearing everything, Kaname Sudo, after some consideration, made a special privilege request, and this request was quickly approved by the system operators on the other side. In another development, Haraga's young daughter, who had sacrificed his life in the previous confrontation, finally received compensation from the insurance company. Nevertheless, the little girl's eyes were still filled with doubt, as if that tender heart still couldn't accept the painful truth about her father's sudden departure. At the same time, Ryuji Misaka, the young man carrying a heavy past, was helped by a mysterious blonde girl, who used her dragon chains to recreate his arm after it was severely damaged in battle. The girl named Kei was known as one of the key members of the Sunset Ravens Martial Arts Club, a group similar to a guild in the Darwin's game world, led by a foreign fighter named Danju. This person became famous after becoming the last survivor in the treasure hunt game that took place previously. After achieving absolute victory, Danju used his special rights to create a private arena where players could challenge each other to collect points in an environment controlled by him. This space became a familiar destination for players eager to train and establish their position in the chaotic Darwin world. After the brutal treasure hunt closed with countless losses and sacrifices, Kaname Sudo made a bold decision to change the entire landscape of Darwin's game. He no longer wanted to face the brutal forces in this deadly game alone, so he officially established his own alliance called Sunset Ravens. The group's goal was to survive to establish a new order in the chaotic world where humans are forced to fight for their lives. The core members of Sunset Ravens initially included Shuka Kurino, the skilled chain-wielding female warrior who always fought alongside Kaname; Rain Kashiwagi, the genius girl with extremely accurate tactical analysis abilities; Ryuji Misaka, the former gang member who once confronted them but now loyal to the group's ideals; and Sui, the person carrying a dual personality, the quiet girl, and her twin brother Sauda living in her subconscious. In the journey to expand their influence, Kaname approached Danjo, leader of the Clan Boxing Club, a combat group operating independently in Darwin's game's underground arena system. Although this group wasn't antagonistic, they maintained a neutral attitude toward other forces. Kaname saw alliance potential here and personally proposed cooperation. Danjo didn't refuse but set a clear condition: if Kaname wanted to become an ally, he must accept a direct challenge with him in a one-on-one match. Despite the obvious physical disparity, Kaname accepted the challenge. While Danjo was one of the 4 strongest players in the entire game, possessing biological transformation abilities making his body indestructible, immune to guns and conventional weapons, Kaname only had an advantage in tactical intelligence. The match tilted heavily in Danjo's favor, but Kaname's perseverance and fighting spirit made a strong impression. Although he didn't win, he still received recognition from Danjo, successfully establishing a strategic alliance with the boxing club. Just as the confrontation ended, a mysterious figure suddenly appeared. A swordswoman in pitch black attire, face completely covered by a mask, silently stepped onto the arena. None other than Liu Zulan, the person holding the highest position on the player ranking in Darwin's game. She possessed an unusual skill, not from Sigil, the special ability in the game, but from traditional techniques existing before she entered this deadly world. That technique, called Heart Sword, was an attack striking directly at the opponent's mind, making victims have the authentic feeling that their life had just been severed, although their body suffered no injury. Right in the arena, Zulan used this technique to make Kaname feel as if he had actually died in an instant. Not stopping there, she continued to easily defeat both Ryuji and Rain, two people who had participated in life and death battles with Wang before. After defeating the entire group, she didn't kill anyone but surprisingly captured Koname, then withdrew mysteriously. While everyone was in confusion, Rain used all her analytical abilities and available documents to investigate Liu Zulan's skills. Through the research process, she discovered that Heart Sword wasn't in the sigil system, meaning it wasn't controlled by the game's mechanism, but came entirely from real-world training abilities. This made Zulan one of the most dangerous players, almost unpredictable. Meanwhile, Koname was tightly bound at Zulan's hideout. The strange thing was that she didn't torture, threaten, or even make demands about points or rewards. After a period of silence, Zulan coldly revealed that the reason for the kidnapping wasn't to eliminate him, but for a highly personal goal. She wanted Koname to become her husband, an unexpected declaration, completely contradictory to the brutal fighting context of Darwin's game, opened a strange turning point that no one in Sunset Ravens could have anticipated. Upon receiving information from Rain Kashiwagi about Koname Sudo's capture, Shuka Karino quickly gathered all members of Sunset Ravens to implement a rescue plan. The group immediately set out, acting decisively with the sole objective of bringing their leader back safely, at any cost. In another area, Liu Zulan, the leader of the Darwin's game rankings, began to reveal her true objective. Contrary to her usual cold appearance, she gave a surprising reason for her intention to pursue Koname, wanting to produce perfect descendants for the assassin clan she inherited. With a genetic mindset, Zulan believed that combining with someone possessing superior survival qualities like Koname would create an ideal next generation. When warned of approaching people, Zulan immediately guessed that Sunset Ravens were surrounding them. Instead of waiting for rescue, Koname made a tactical suggestion. If she escaped without injuring anyone in the group, he would consider her marriage proposal. A challenge targeting both skill and psychology. This ambiguous commitment made Zulan accept. Although confident in her ability to escape without needing to strike, she faced an elite formation and trap system set up by Koname himself. As a result, she couldn't pass the test set for her. Rather than confrontation, Zulan declared she would join Sunset Ravens as a way of acknowledging Koname's strategic talent. Despite suspicious glances from the members, Koname still accepted, with just one condition. If she betrayed the organization, she must first betray him. A brief warning, showing both calmness and absolute faith in the persuasive power of the ideal he was pursuing. Upon returning to the hideout, Koname immediately received a video from Wam, the leader of the undead organization from the island region. In the footage, Shinazuka Koname's loyal friend with a chubby build was captured and threatened with death if Koname didn't appear at the designated location. This despicable act pushed Koname to his limit of endurance, making it impossible for him to stay calm. Unable to let his close friend face danger, Koname immediately gathered all members of Sunset Ravens, preparing a bold action to rescue him. Accompanying them on this mission was Inukai, an experienced fighter from the Danju Boxing Club, who had previously assisted Koname in battle. When the group approached the port area according to the coordinates in the video, they were unexpectedly blocked by Keiichi, a member of Undead who was thought to have been eliminated in the previous hotel battle, where Hiragi had used his special power to collapse the entire structure. Inukai volunteered to face Keiichi alone to prevent him from causing obstacles, creating conditions for the remaining members to carry out the main mission. Sui and Sauda quickly coordinated to eliminate the henchmen blocking the way, clearing guard posts to open the path into the warehouse. Meanwhile, Koname and Ryuji slipped through concealed passages, silently approaching the area where Shinazuka was held captive, taking advantage of every gap to avoid drawing attention. When confronting Wang in the warehouse, Koname not only saw his friend being miserably tortured, but also clearly felt the merciless inhumanity of the undead leader. Shinazuka had not survived the brutal torture. The moment he saw the motionless body of his friend who had shared in his struggles, Koname was stunned, the pain in his heart burning through reason, igniting a deep anger. Wang wasn't simply an opponent, he had become a symbol of unforgivable pain. This confrontation was not just for survival, but also a declaration of war for everything Wang had done. With burning rage in his heart, Koname and his comrades entered a life-or-death battle, determined to completely end the threat from undead, even if it meant exchanging it for all their remaining strength. At the moment of witnessing Shinazuka's corpse, the sincere comrade who had fought by his side being brutally murdered, emotions in Koname seemed to freeze completely. From pain transformed into cruelty, his eyes became soulless, no longer hindered by reason or mercy. Without hesitation, he drew his gun, firing a direct shot at one of Wang's subordinates. Blood splattered on the wall, without a trace of regret. In Koname's eyes now, such people were no longer worthy of playing, they were just scum surviving through callous cruelty. Previously, Koname had believed that most Darwin's game participants were normal people, forced to adapt to a mad world. They became brutal due to survival instinct, not by nature. However, with Undead, the organization led by Wang, he realized the boundary between virtual game and reality had been completely blurred. They acted like wild beasts both in game and in real life, meaning they had voluntarily chosen to be cold-blooded. This made Koname make a decisive decision, initiating a clan battle with Undead, declaring he would completely eradicate this organization without mercy. In response to the declaration of war, Wang roared with anger, calling for his subordinates to charge forward and kill Koname. However, those men were eliminated by Koname's overwhelming firepower before they could close in. No one could stand against the precise cruelty of the Sunset Ravens leader. It wasn't just fighting, it was execution. On the other side of the battle line, Wang, enraged to the extreme, personally pursued Shuka after seeing her. With hatred accumulated from his defeat in the previous treasure hunt, he believed he could now personally crush the one who had humiliated him. He chased her into a large warehouse, where the gloomy atmosphere created an overwhelming sense of unease. Confident in his strength, Wang charged straight at Shuka, without the slightest suspicion. However, in an instant, he froze as one of his legs was severed from his body, blood splattering, causing him to collapse onto the cold floor. Stunned by not understanding what was happening, he still tried to rise and charge again, but the nightmare wasn't over. Another invisible slash caused his right arm to fall off, the wound as clean as if cut by an invisible blade. Writhing in pain, Wang screamed in despair, continuously cursing Shuka. In his rage, a drop of blood from his forehead fell to the floor. At that moment, he realized the horrifying truth, light reflecting off countless, extremely thin threads spread throughout the warehouse space. These threads were almost invisible to the naked eye, but sharp enough to easily slice through a human body with just a slight movement. Shuka, with superior skill and perfect preparation, had turned this entire room into a deadly trap. For her, an invincible warrior in close combat, it wasn't just a victory of strength, but also a cold declaration sent to those who had underestimated her. In this battle, she would not lose. At this life or death moment, Shuka finally revealed the secret of her special ability. Not merely controlling steel wire as a conventional weapon, Shuka could also make those threads vibrate at extremely high ultrasonic frequencies. Because of this, although thin and almost invisible, just one thread was enough to easily cut through skin, muscle, or even bone of anyone. It wasn't just fighting by instinct, but required a perfect combination of tactical intelligence with absolutely precise lethal skills. Realizing the truth too late, Wang was immediately overwhelmed by extreme fear. His originally arrogant spirit began to collapse. In a state of desperation, he concentrated all his remaining strength to try to crawl away from that death space. Blood flowed continuously, his body out of control, but the will to survive made him struggle to crawl toward the warehouse door, with the faint hope of finding a way to survive. However, just as he escaped outside, hope vanished when Koname and Ryuji, who was once a high-ranking member of a gang, had been waiting there for a long time. There was no escape. With no way out, Wang knelt down begging, offering all 1,800 island points in exchange for his life. However, Koname coldly refused. He revealed that he had used the victory privilege after the treasure hunt event, allowing unlimited point betting in battles between clans. Koname bet over 8,000 points, far exceeding any opponent. As a result, just by winning, Wang's entire Undead clan would be permanently erased from the system, with no chance of reappearing. Despite still trying to justify himself, Wang couldn't escape. Koname ended everything with a decisive shot punishment for the one who caused Shuka's death. At the same time, at another location, Inukai from Clan Danju was fighting fiercely with Keed, a dangerous remnant of Undead. The battle pushed both to their limits, but as soon as Wang was eliminated, the system declared Undead's complete defeat. Inukai didn't need to continue fighting. The battle officially ended. Despite the resounding victory, Koname couldn't hide his loss. The death of Shinazuka, who had fought alongside him, left a void difficult to fill. For Koname, Darwin's game wasn't just a survival battle, but a cruel machine crushing both humanity and lives. Before the entire Sunset Ravens, Koname resolutely declared the path ahead. Their goal was no longer to exist or collect points. They would end it.